Please don't confuse the length of time it took to present 3 murders to you with complexity or difficulty. Because at its heart, this case is easy. This case is not difficult at all. This case is about a young woman who was intelligent, who was bright, who, according to her family, you heard their testimony, her friends, she lit up every room she walked into. And she knew the love and support of a large, supportive community. That's how she was raised. And that's what life was like for her. And she was ambitious. And she was determined. And she didn't take no for an answer. She was worked in a dental hygiene office at the age of like 17 or 18, and then decided, you know what, I'm going to nursing school. And then when that wasn't enough for her, she said, you know what, I'm going to be a doctor. There was no stopping this woman, this young lady, I'll call her. And she met this man. She thought it was her Prince Charming. And they were going to be partners together. And she started down this road with him. Unbeknownst to her, it turned out to be a very treacherous path. This bright woman who lit up every room that she walked into was wiped off the face of this earth, taken away from her family. And after he killed her, after he ended her life, he went to his best friend. He chose wisely. He knew she would help him, given how fiercely loyal she was, given her moral code, given her loyalty, how she puts loyalty above everything else. And he chose wisely. And together they embarked on a campaign. They embarked on a campaign to obscure the truth, to lead the investigation in a completely wrong direction. And she called the medical school on his behalf, pretending to be Kathleen Durst. And she sent the police in the wrong direction. Together they did. But this case, if I wanted to, can be summed up in 9 simple words. It was her or me. I had no choice. That says it all. What it says is that it was him or Susan. Because either he's going to kill her, or he feared she was going to go to the authorities with what she knew. He has no choice. We're here because he kills witnesses. That's why we've had this trial. The defendant kills witnesses, or tries to kill witnesses, or plans to kill witnesses. This case is not difficult. Our burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. So please hold us to that standard. The judge has instructed you of what that is. We're not afraid of that burden. We don't shy away from it. We embrace that standard. But we have overwhelming circumstantial evidence of his guilt. We have overwhelming direct evidence of his guilt. We have physical evidence corroborating everything these witnesses have told you. We have multiple confessions and admissions of his guilt. We have a defendant who took the stand and said whatever he thought you wanted to hear and lied repeatedly to avoid responsibility. This case is not difficult.
Masterful. I mean, absolutely. That's what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing and what I'm feeling. Habib Balian. And this is unbelievable. Even with the mask on, he's just telling a story. And it's a simple story. And it's one that you can follow. It makes sense. Let me bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, joining us live from Los Angeles County, California. Chanley, also a former prosecutor. Great to see you. To me, this is like this huge thing that he's carrying into the courtroom, this trial that started last year, and he's just laying it out nice and easy for everybody.
You are right. It was masterful, and what a pleasure to sit inside the courtroom and to be able to watch how he delivered verbally the arguments, but almost seamlessly also intertwined his arguments with the visual elements, the physical evidence he would hold up, the immediate video clips that would play on the screen, really grabbing the attention of the jurors. And he held the attention of the jurors, Vinny, all day long. The jurors leaned in. Some would take notes. I noticed, which I don't usually see in a jury, some of the jurors even nodding in agreement to what he was saying. He moved around the courtroom comfortably and would look even towards the gallery as if he was arguing to the gallery at times, which is unusual. He was just in the moment. I can't imagine how many hours and hours and hours of preparation went into this closing argument, which, like you said, a long trial. It took 4 months, proving 3 murders to prove 1 here, and he did it today. He covered so much ground in 1 day, but yet I didn't feel as though anything was lacking or missing from the day.
You know, young prosecutors, they should take this video and show it to young prosecutors and say, listen, you're not going to try a 4-month trial. Your cases are going to be a lot more simple, but look at how easy he made it for this jury and how interesting and conversational and just taking control of the moment, taking control of the courtroom. How about Robert Durst? We saw the camera swing over a couple times. Is he even watching the prosecutor? Can you tell what he's doing, who he's looking at?
Oh yeah, he is. He's stoic, sitting in his wheelchair at the end of the defense counsel table, Vinny, and his defense attorneys, Dick DeGuerin and David Chesnuff, are almost blocking the jurors' view of Robert Durst sitting there in the courtroom. But he was paying attention. At one time, he even interrupted the court because his tablet that he can read the transcript of the court record, the battery died or somehow it wasn't working. He raised his hand for that. We also noticed that he moved his wheelchair back at one point to get a better vantage point of Habib Balian giving his closing argument. And at one point, even this afternoon, Robert Durst raised his hand kind of like up and down because he was clearly disturbed by what Habib was arguing, almost like telling Habib to calm down a little bit in that moment. So he was paying attention. And again, all the jurors really couldn't see him and see what he was doing, but they spent a long time watching Robert Durst on the stand. They know exactly how he acts in the courtroom.
All right, let me ask you about John Lewin. Obviously, there's some strategy at play here. We can still hear from him, right? And perhaps as the rebuttal, the final word in front of this jury. But I just can't imagine him at this moment sitting there and not talking. It's unbelievable.
You know, it had to be difficult for him to sit still today and not say anything, Vinny, but we do know he will be delivering the rebuttal closing for the prosecution next Tuesday morning. He has until noon Pacific time Tuesday. That's when the judge will actually probably cut him off for deliberations, but he will be the closer for the prosecution case. Really a team effort inside the courtroom. We were even hearing from Ethan Milius late this afternoon about the Galveston evidence and arguments surrounding Morris Black from him. And this, what a dynamic interplay between all of the co-prosecutors inside the courtroom, almost as if they anticipate each other, what they're going to say, and helping each other throughout this really long trial.
All right, let's bring in our think tank. Don't go away, Chanley. Joining us tonight in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy. In Los Angeles, California, where all this is happening, former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani is with us. And in Phoenix, Arizona, the attorney who represented Jodi Arias. He's also the author of the book series Trapped with Ms. Arias, Kirk Nurmi. Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to start with Nima, just because he's the former prosecutor here. Your thoughts? Are you on board with me? Am I crazy here, or was this like exactly the way you should be doing it?
Vinny, I like it. We know John Lewin knows this case better than anyone. He's been living it with it for years, maybe even decades. But I like having Habib Balian do the opening argument. We know Lewin is very aggressive. We know he's going to argue the strongest point that DeGuerin is likely going to make, or Chesnuff or Lewis. We expect it to be DeGuerin. I like having Lewin as the closer in this case, just like in baseball. I know you love the analogies. You have your pitcher who's starting. Habib Balian is calm. He's methodically going through the evidence and the instructions. And then you bring in Lewin when the defense has no chance to come back, and he's going to hammer the point home. And hopefully the district attorney's office will finally get a guilty verdict, and Durst will get justice after almost 40 years.
Yeah, we'll see on that. You know, we got to see it to believe it. All right, Eklund Mercy, your thoughts about the closing argument today?
I mean, I think, I think it was a great idea. I think somebody heard my last my last interview. I really am about, really changing out attorneys, especially with a case like this. Sometimes we do need mental health breaks, especially with a long murder case that's very intensive. So sometimes we get too entrenched in the case that we need to back up, even if it's closing arguments, even if it's rebuttal. Sometimes we just have to pass the ball, and I commend the attorney for doing that. I think that the prosecutor did a good job, but if he is taking a break for his mental, I commend him on that as well.
Kirk Nermy, you know something about doing long murder trials. Your thoughts about how prosecutors approached the closing arguments here?
Yeah, I thought he did a great job, as you said earlier, simplifying, and he talked, and even not just simplifying the evidence, but talking about those hooks, right? Any good effective closing has good hooks, and we heard about those 9 words, and we talked about how reality always wins. And the other thing we're not talking about when we are talking about Lewin's cross-examination that I think is important when we talk about passing this ball is the idea that we're not feeling like there's a personal animosity here. Mr. Balian did this great job of just laying out the evidence in an objective, matter-of-fact way. It didn't seem like a personal attack, a personal vendetta, like what we saw in Lewin's cross. And I think, Nima says bring him off the bench as a closer. I say leave him on the bench because Mr. Balian's doing great, and it looks objective, and it looks clean, it looks professional, and it's going to lead to a conviction. Mr. Lewin, I don't know.
All right, we shall see. Let's bring back in Chanley Painter. Chanley, a big day today, obviously, but prosecutors will be continuing tomorrow.
Certainly. We have Ethan Milius still up talking about Galveston, Morris Black. Habib could possibly step in just to wrap things up before the lunch recess because the defense will then take over closing arguments. We're expecting Dick DeGuerin to take much of the rest of the day. Court is dark on Fridays here in California, Vinny. So on Monday, David Chesnoff will give the rest of the defense closing argument before John Lewin has the rebuttal on Tuesday.
All right, Chanley Painter in L.A., thank you so much. When we come back, folks, death penalty case, arson, 9 bodies, videotape today. What does it actually prove? We'll get the latest coming up next.